Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. We've got Miguel Arevalo from Google, which is crazy. We're getting a behind the curtain look at Google. So, Miguel, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you for having me, Aurelio. Looking forward to this, and thank you for the audience for the interest.
You guys just released your plastic-free packaging design guide. I love a design guide. It helps you kind of plot your course, kind of figure out what you want to do. There's so many guides out there. So when you guys release this one, I couldn't even believe that you guys did this because there's so much detailed information in there. And I'd love to get to it. But before we get to the guide, Miguel, what do you do and how did you get to Google in packaging?
Oh, thank you. So actually, I've been within the packaging industry a little bit more than 15 years. I got the opportunity to be or start my career within Gillette in Procter Gamble back in Mexico. And yes, it was an amazing experience. A lot of mentors in there. I came to Google around 4 years ago and had the opportunity to get on this challenge around sustainability. Great mentors to hear, amazing people. I think I'm privileged to have these amazing people in the team that we have here. I've been leading our innovation and sustainability efforts within the group. So we were able to launch this guide and share over to the world what we have working for the last 3 years.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
excited about it.
Cool. And if you're listening to this or watching this and you haven't seen this guide, there's a QR code up here where you can scan it. It'll take you right to the page where you can download it right from Google.
Thank you.
How does this guide apply to everything that you guys are doing internally?
Great question. I think it's one of the common questions that we have. When you think about sustainability at Google, I think there are two main fronts. The first one is on the carbon footprint side. And yes, Google is this big information company where we have data centers. We have a decade of history using clean energy, but also we have a commitment. So by 2030, we should be able to be net zero in all our emissions. Of course, this is considering the scope 3 emissions that we release. This includes our consumer electronics portfolio. So from the carbon footprint side, it's clear that we need to do, but also we put our efforts around circular economy. And we wanted to make sure that at least from the consumer electronic portfolio, we can be able to aim for product longevity. We would like to have our products to last longer. We use safe chemistry on our materials. And also we make sure that we can be able to keep increasing the recycled content. So when we were wondering around how our devices can be able to translate or how these can be helpful to support sustainability, we decided that we can be able to relate to the overall mission that Google has and try to relate that the innovation in sustainability should be a collaborative effort, not a competitive one. When we were thinking around that, it's not enough to have these big companies to try to compete, maybe to try to get on the highest amount of plastic free or the biggest claim or the one. We believe that in order to do meaningful, true change, we need to, and in order to accelerate that, the progress that we desperately need, we need to do this collaborative. So along in the industry, we know that when you are a designer, it's nice to hear, yes, company A, company B, they have been doing all these different claims and all these guys are higher than the others. Knowing the claims is one thing, but really understanding how they achieve that, something completely different. We were able to have the opportunity to connect with different industries, being able to share on different conferences and different forums around our intentions. And we received very similar questions around, we don't have all the money that you guys have. We don't have all the resources that you guys have. So, and agree, I think at the end is not everyone will have the same capacity or capabilities. There is an opportunity also we can be able to share, and not everyone will need to go through all these hurdles so they can be able to overcome, or they can be able to achieve their goals. So
sure.
The intention here is empowerment. So let's empower other companies. This is not a perfect solution, but it's one that we found can be able to be scalable. And also by sharing our suppliers, by sharing our materials, also it can be able to be much more easier for designers. So they can be able to connect, they can be able to elaborate from those and potentially apply easier for this collective transformation.
If you're looking at the guide, if you're looking at the plastic-free packaging design guide, you talk about the materials, the suppliers of the materials, the manufacturers, like you're giving everything. And this is, and I guess a lot of people don't be like, oh, it's just another guide. No, like this is like the first guide of its kind where a company of your size is opening completely saying, here's how we make our packaging. Here's the things that we've found help reduce waste, eliminate plastic. Here's some opportunities. You're the manufacturers that can do it. Like, here's their website. Like, go to them and figure it out. Because a lot of times, as a brand, you're designing packaging. You're trying to cut costs in different areas. You're trying to find, ways to eliminate plastic, ways to stand out with your competitors on shelf. The last thing that you want to do is, hey, here's how we did it, and here's where you can go get it, right? But that's where I think this is so important. Is like you're opening the doors to collaboration and helping bring the entire industry up versus we're the most plastic free. And I'm sorry for you guys that can't afford it, but we're good. Like, we're better. And it's not about that. It's, we're all trying to be sustainable.
Agree.
We all have to do it together.
Agree. It's what we need. I think at the end, everyone is within the same goal. We would need to make sure that we can be able to do the best for the next generations to come. And it's collectively is the only way to get there. When
we talk about plastic packaging, like, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered in the past that have led to, okay, now we need to eliminate it in some of these different areas?
A myriad of different things. I think, and I will be very transparent with you. So plastic is great. It's great to do many things. It has created a lot of different solutions. It can be able to protect the products, can be able to protect food. It can be able to do a lot of things. And it has been done in a way that it's incredibly efficient from the cost perspective. However, what has happened is we have created a lot of different mixed material kind of formats in a way, which at the end of life, it creates challenges from the recycling portion of it. Thinking about circular economy, maximizing the use of the material. So it doesn't allow to get you there, even though provide the convenience for the product to be shipped, to be protected, the consumer side. And we have seen that also there are brands that potentially try to change the overall behavior, which is very challenging too. So consumers are not like us. They are not designers that really understand, okay, this is polypropylene, this is PET, I should be able to make this separation sometimes. They don't. It's a box. So if this is confusing for consumers, also it's going to be very complicated for at the end of life on recycling processes, where at the end, most likely, is going to end up in landfills and harming the environment. We have seen a lot of these photos where the cleanups on the ocean on plastic, and also I just saw you can be able to find microplastics everywhere. Unfortunately, so, yeah.
Yes, there's microplastics in men's parts.
In men, exactly. I just read that out. So in our case, we aim to for a solution that can be able to align on the consumer journey that exists today. So consumer electronics in particular, it's expected a premium experience, and also it's expected a convenience where, yes, you can be able to have the wowing moment at the moment you open the box. You can bring this desirability when you open it, but also you need to provide the responsibility and at the end of life without the guilt that sometimes consumers will feel like, I don't know what to do with this. I will throw it away and potentially it has plastic on it. So I'm not doing my part of it. So the solution that we found not only improve the sustainability or the end of life itself, but also maintain that functionality. That's an example, maybe talking about mixed materials. When we used to have the box before, we have a polypropylene lamination on top. So maybe for the audience, we have these laminations so we can be able to protect the box because no one wants to see a scratch over the artwork over the top. And we have a challenge in supply chain. So we needed to find a solution that, one, is going to be responsible at the end of life, can be recyclable, repulpable, so we can be able to maximize the use of that material, the fiber at the end, but also can be able to provide the same experience. No, so we work along with our suppliers very closely on this one. But on the other side, maybe that is a tricky one because it's very hard for the consumer so they can be able to separate a lamination from a box. Will not happen. It's not able to happen never. But even though you talk about discrete parts, before we used to have the cell phone, let's say, and the cell phone is wrapped out by a plastic part. Also, from the convenience point of view, you cannot be able to ask the consumer so they can be able to put the plastic wrap on one bin and the other in the other one. It's the behavior is not set up that way. So try to aim for one single source of material. It was important. So we can be able to get those hurdles away and possibly simplify the recycling process without compromising this consumer expectation.
I've done a couple of videos in the past where I take boxes and I kind of start peeling it and you start separating it. You can see the plastic lamination, right? And that's the challenge is consumer expectation is when I buy something, my box has to be pristine. And if the box is scratched, it increases the opportunity for them to return that product and get a new one, same product, just the box isn't scratched. Especially in the US, I've seen is the expectation of the packaging has to be pristine. Brother, even though the purpose of the packaging is to protect the product inside and take the beating, from the environment and transit and everything and show up to your house and be scratched up, but you open up and the product is perfect inside. Yeah. But we've kind of, and I say by we as like the packaging designers, we've kind of changed that by it's got to be perfect. We've got to have a lamination so we can wipe it down, especially if we're in cosmetics or tech, where we don't want any kind of dusting. We don't want any kind of scratches or scuffs or any kind of shiny area on like a matte lamination because it's been rubbing on something that's greasy. It's like at the end of the day, the product inside is still perfect. So I think we're pretty far away from changing that consumer expectation of maybe the packaging can take a beating and still have the product be perfect. So you guys went and developed with your partners a new process that kind of gives you the same feeling and protective qualities, but it's not a lamination. Now it's a coating.
That is correct. And that coating also, we were able to work very closely with WMU and Western Michigan University here. They have an amazing process where they can be able to evaluate reprovability, recyclability. So at least we can be able to have a much better perspective on real life, how these materials can be able to be recovered. So if everything is done or as expected, potentially this material can be able to find its way back and can be able to be something else.
The coating you developed, does it contain any level of plastic or how did it?
I think one of the things that we did on the guide is because plastic is so the ubiquity of plastic is challenging. It's everywhere. We were saying you can be able to find it on many parts now. So we focus these efforts around the recyclability portion of it. How can we be able to increase the overall recyclability of the material? So these will not affect that particular portion, of course, considering convenience and all that stuff that we just mentioned. So we were able to work and to find a definition of plastic where in particular, anything that is related as a flow material, something that is a film that can be able to affect, of course, adhesives and the coatings and inks were not part of that definition. So those are still there. We need to provide some graphics to our product so still can be able to be noticeable, can be able to bring that information that needed for the consumer. But this solution was proven to be reprovable and recyclable, was proven to be on a high 90s, 99, 98% of reprovable. So it can be able to recover back all that much of fiber. It can be able to be actual fiber that can be able to be used later for something else.
How long did it take to develop this process and material?
The coating was the one that took a little bit longer. I think it was around 12 months on intensive development, working very closely with our supplier. Just to give you a story, I think we went from 50 plus different solutions. And well, in our guide, we went very clear on different steps that we take in order to get this done. But I think it's along on the lines of reviewing technical data sheets, reviewing material safety data sheets, making sure that the information is available. We don't want to maybe use materials that may not have all the information available. You need to be sure that we are responsible on what we use. And yes, along all these different solutions, Megami was the one that hit all the different boxes that we had. So it can be able to provide that repeatability, manufacturability, but also making sure that it can be able to keep the opening experience that we were looking for with responsible end of life.
As I go through the guide, you've got it broken out into like fiber and coatings, down to the details of tapes. You've got images of like your boxes unfolded and the way that they wrap together. From a engineering standpoint, how did your packaging change because of these shifts in materials? Like how did that structure and everything else change?
It did. So it's not the same tolerance when you used to have the plastic versus when you don't have it. So there were a lot of consideration that we needed to work along the way. The solution without the plastic can be able to still meet the intent. And we have specs such as opening time when you get the lid out from the box. And because that is important from the consumer perspective. The wowing moment, this layer effect, the delayed opening experience. So yes, we needed to be sure that we define success first, the success criteria. Of course, considering what we used to have before, we needed to understand the trade-offs if we move on this fiber solution, what those were. And yes, along with the design, the different materials, and the structural considerations, how to meet those goals. And we try to be as clear and detailed on the guide around what tolerances we consider, why we consider those tolerances, and why some features that we used to have before that are not considered right now on fiber solution. I think we made a specific detail on the closure labels, which are a little bit harder. So you want to make sure that the closure label can still be able to close your box, but also be able to be opened without adding extra hurdle, not only for on the opening experience in general, and should be accessible for anyone, regardless the abilities that we have. So we needed to adjust, but making sure that we were clear on the success criteria.
So the closure label, I think that one's one that stands out to me is right when you receive a product and it's a two-piece, you've got a base and the lid and they're flush together. Then the underside, you've got the security label where it's got the little arrow and you got to tear it across. You talked about trade-offs, and I think sustainability is all about trade-offs. Right? You can't just shift to one thing without affecting something else, and then that affecting something else as well. So you have to make those decisions. When I tear that, one thing I want to make sure is when I receive that product, that there's no rips in that tear strip. Right? That shows me that I'm the first person getting in there. You've shifted away from some of these different materials to what you have now. What was the challenge there in terms of making sure that it didn't tear easily by itself before it got to me, right? And then that it's easy enough for my grandmother to tear it as well, right?
Exactly. So we used to have we have extensive data around user research, and what I love about Google is we spend the time and the effort so we can really understand what the consumer expectations are. So on that line, before, yes, you were mentioning, we used to have a plastic liner on the bottom that can be able to provide that tensile strength. So when you rip it off, the plastic is going to help you to have a clean cut across. So that was the main challenge, to be honest with you, be able to find a solution that still can be able to give a much more higher tensile strength, but not enough so it will rip off when you are closing these boxes in the automated process.
Sure.
But also from the user experience point of view, we elaborate there on the guide that we evaluate along with individuals with diverse abilities, both mobility and dexterity impairments, but also weak people without any impairment. So we can be able to really understand what differences or similarities they can be able to feel, because we don't explain to them what is one versus what the other is. Tell us what you feel, tell us what you see. So it can be able to be a much easier experience, and so we can translate those benefits. I think on the solution that we found, the different materials that we used, the different textures that we use there, and the overall stack up that we have, it gave, at least the data show it a much easier peel off, but without the trade-off to being ripped off from the supply chain, either from the manufacturing chain or being shipped over to the consumer. I agree with you. At the end, as a user, I want to make sure that whatever I'm buying, even though, of course, these high value products, I am the first one. I am the only one that it is mine. I don't want anyone else to have it. So that was important for us, and we went all the way so we can be able to really understand what the user expectations were, all the users that we have.
In here you've got molded fiber trays, and talk about the shift from molded fiber to molded fiber from thermoform plastics, and that I know this is about moving into papers, but what are your thoughts on ocean-bound plastic?
The ubiquity of plastic is there. So plastic is not the challenge itself as a material, is the capability so it can be able to be collected and sorted properly, so it can be able to be recycled. Unfortunately, right now, the recycling streams that exist, there is no easy way to do it. That is a challenge. And right now, increasing or coming from different sources of plastic, it's great. It reduces overall need around petrochemical materials, but I don't think it's solving at the end of life completely around how these can be effectively collected and sorted, which creates this challenge around if these materials can really be able to be maximized or coming back
Sure.
as a new material in the future. So that's why we decided that fiber is the way to go. Just not only because it has the higher recycling stream on many locations, but it's around also in our particular packaging. We were almost there as a fiber solution. So that is what our consumer are expecting to receive. They are not expecting to have a clamshell plastic potentially
Yeah.
because of the experience about it. So we tried to went all the way in to try to make all those comparisons.
And I ask because everybody's always asking, like, well, there's so much plastic in the ocean. Can we take that stuff out? And really, once it's in the ocean, it's degraded. You can't really repurpose that for any type of beneficial packaging or anything of quality. But when we're talking about like the molded fiber, you've got so many different materials that can be used for molded fiber. What are you using? What's the base material that you're using for your molded fiber?
We have good fibers. I think that is a base one, but also we have bamboo and bagasse. Bagasse being a byproduct of agricultural waste, bamboo being a very fast-growing fiber. And all of them, or our good base fibers are responsibly sourced. So either if it's FSC mix or FSC virgin, all of them are FSC sourced. Of course, bagasse it's just a byproduct, but also we have recycled content we use all across our packaging. So yeah, it's responsible sourcing is important for us. We wanted to make sure that we're not cutting trees that we shouldn't be. But also making sure that these not only are being grown later on, but also that we can be able to maximize at the end of life. So,
and then we kind of talk about all the different replacements, the paper tapes, the different coatings, the molded pulp. Overall, like how much plastic does this replace, and how much of it is using like recycled materials? Because your boxes aren't necessarily that big. Right. So as a consumer, you're like, well, you only change this much. I only eliminate this much plastic, but as a company, like you're making a big difference here.
I agree. I think yes. So when we start this process back on late 2020, when we wanted to make all these conversions, we make a deep dive into what our weight was in our packaging. Where do we have the fiber? Where do we have the different plastic? And we found that we were a little bit over 90%, 93, 94% by weight. So yes, as you mentioned, maybe that may not look as much, but when you compound that from the overall volumes that we manage, it's significant plastic that we wanted to get away from it. So when we eliminated that, we were able to find that where I don't have the numbers with me, but it was everything add up. But most importantly is these maybe low percentages plastic where part of these material that you never see, and it's material that is being thrown to the landfill that potentially just affecting not only the location that the landfill is, but also it's contaminating different areas in the biodiversity. So yeah, it's the volume was considerable around what we try to reduce on this one.
Okay, and then you've got the hang tags. The hang tabs are typically plastic, right? We've all seen them. They're heavy plastic. We've seen some brands try to do like a SBS board and kind of fold it over. It looks great when you receive it, but then once it's on the store and people pull it and move it, it starts tearing and doesn't look great. You've shifted to a molded fiber. Now, typically your hang tags lay flat and then they're popping up. So do they have a hinge built in? Tell me about that hang tab.
It does. So SBS. So we look also on that solution, and also we have another solution called Paper Loop on that one. I think overall, as a success criteria on these particular material or component, the intention was we want to have these hinge capability so we can be able to maximize the volume when we pack this one inside the boxes. But also, as you mentioned, people in the shelf, we want to see that take the box, maybe bring it back. So molded fiber, we we use this method where we can be able to see how much strength it can be able to withhold each one of these different materials, meaning molded fiber they want, that it was closer or as close as the plastic solution that we used to have before. And also it can be able to meet, so it was part also of the same fiber components that we used to have. And also we were working with different suppliers, so we can be able to have different thicknesses around it. So when we have a high, heavier product, we can be able to have the one that is a little bit thicker, but still be able to have that capability to be hanged several times, but also being pulled out with several newtons of force and still be able to not break. So yeah, we went all the way. We on the guide we went a little bit more detailed on the process itself, the testing that we take, and why molded fiber was the way to go in our case. Some of the options also were a little bit more challenging from the operations point of view, weren't as scalable. Of course, there were some components on the cost side that weren't as attractive at that point of time. That doesn't mean that we just drop them away. It just means that there is still work to go there. But as today, molded fiber was the way to go.
For anybody that's listening, the guide is not, we took this and replaced it with this, or you should do this material instead of this material. You're really going into the process. You're going into why, like your tray cavity, the radii in the tray cavity, why it needs to be 5 millimeters. You talk about the abrasion of the material. You're really, it's an education. And I think anybody that's out there that's in design, whether you're packaging design visual, or structural, or you're a startup and you're looking to do your own packaging, like this really gives you a full, complete education on the packaging process. You've got prototypes in here. You're showing materials that didn't work. You're showing some comparative studies. And I think it'll make you as a designer a little bit smarter in the questions that you're asking and maybe the way that you approach your own design process. Like I would love to see this guide just become part of the curriculum in packaging studies. But how do you see maybe young designers using this, or how would you like to see young designers begin to use this guide?
I love that. I think it's one intended goal potentially here that we love that potentially can be able to have that scalability. So I think the guide can be able to show the best practices from our team in order to get products out there, then still be able to meet all these different criteria: convenience, high unboxing, premium unboxing experience, but at the end also make sure that it has a responsible end of life. These are real world examples. But yes, we are also sharing the material choices, the testing processes that we found, but also some framework on how to approach all these different challenges. So it's not intended to share all the complete answers, but at least it's going to give you at least some hint on the work that has been done. And hopefully it can be able to inspire students so it can be able to think creatively and also collaborate, maybe think around opportunities to connect with either competitors, either with someone else. So it can be able to still elaborate around that. Hopefully these can be able to come on curriculums for educational purposes. I'm excited. We have approached it because one of the things on the guide is we share an email so it can be able to connect with us. Several people within the group received those inquiries. Very excited about several around people reacting on this and potentially considering exactly what you just said. This potentially can be something that can be used in engineering courses for designers, so it can be able to be scalable somewhere else. So that's very empowering. I'm very proud about this and the work that the team has done. And yeah, hopefully you can be able to see the light around that. And of course, the other is this is not the only thing that we would like to do. So we're hoping maybe to keep doing this as more learnings are available, just because it's information that matter. It's information that can be able to help others too, or at least maybe the failures that we get are things that potentially can avoid someone else to go through the same line of failures, and they can be able to build from them. So yeah, it's very, very empowering.
No, it's great because again, this guide is so in depth, and it's not just you saying, here's what you should do. It's here's what we did, here's where this didn't work, and here's where we found the solution. But you're not giving all the information. You're giving enough information that somebody's going to be able to take this and build upon it and create something new for themselves, which I think is what's super helpful. And then you also have like you said, you've got contact info for yourselves, you got contact info for the suppliers. So somebody that's looking to do packaging, I would say at volume, can reach out to these suppliers and say, hey, I want to do something similar to what I saw here. How can we achieve this in my position? And I say at volume because if you're a startup doing 1,000, or 5,000, some of these things don't necessarily apply to you, but there's definitely learnings in here that you can use to build on. You went through this whole thing. You've seen a lot of different production processes. You've seen a ton of different materials out there. I'm sure there's a lot of materials that didn't make it into this. Mm-hmm. What are some of the materials that you're most excited about that aren't quite at scale yet, but you can see a potential future for them?
Yeah, no, I think on our side, we want to, so thinking on what Google is aiming for, the net zero goal, and I think carbon is the next thing. And one of the questions that we usually receive a lot is, oh yeah, you're moving away from plastic versus fiber and you're adding weight to it. So how that really translates on the carbon emission that you are getting? And it's a fair question, to be honest with you. And the way we approach on this is we needed to be sure that we can be able to control where we don't have a lot of control on, which is at the end of life. So at least we can be able to secure that at the end of life, there is a responsible way these can be able to be recovered toward maximizing circularity. And then we can be able to go back from the design portion of it, which we control, so we can be able to try to find ways to reduce the carbon emissions there. So within that line, I think lightweighting solutions within fibers are very interesting. How you can be able to use materials that still be able to protect our products, but can be able to keep challenging how much material you really need in order to get that. Adhesives, these kind of solutions are very interesting for us. Also, we're looking on different or exploring circular solutions. So regardless, right now we have these disposable packaging, still amazing, beautiful. Some people, we found that they hold it by themselves because it has some sentimental value of it. But I think at the end is the packaging is designed to be disposable as today, nevertheless. So, and of course, responsible disposables, we can be able to find its way back. But we're also looking on what other opportunities may exist. So you can be able to bring more circular solutions. We are scaling our footprint on our stores. So we have a couple of stores in New York, and we're seeing more and more. So also can be able to provide a very exciting opportunity how we can be able to leverage that. So yeah, we're excited about how we can be able to bring this up and keep looking a little bit closer on fiber solutions that can be able to decrease the amount of water, the amount of energy, the amount of resources in order to make it work. How still be able to increase the overall experience for the user when they open a box, not only this wow-ing moment or effect, but also using other solutions that can increase that out. But also components that still be able to use, but adhesives, cushioning solutions, so we can be able to have product protection, which if we don't have the product protected, it's going to increase more emissions. So it's not solving the main goal of packaging itself. So
it's those trade-offs. There's never an easy switch.
There's never an easy one. But yeah, it's those. We're excited about those things.
Oh, that's good. No, there's a couple of materials out there that I've seen that I'm pretty excited about. One is it's called Smart Solve. That paper it like dissolves in water. I'm sure you've seen some of that stuff out there. That's pretty cool. There's another one called WOAMY. It's WOAMY. Uh-huh. And this is like I was speaking at Aalto University in Finland, and it's one of the groups from within that school, which that school developed. In one, I think all schools should be like this, where they will help fund the students to develop new materials and new processes, and then they just help the students build a company.
Oh, wow,
and it's up to them to scale it. But this stuff is it's basically just tree fiber and then turn that into a foam. It's a foam, and it has a compression, but it recycles with paper, which is crazy. So that's just pretty cool.
Excited about that one. Yeah. It's within those cushioning solutions. Interesting.
Yeah, it's an EPS replacement, which is pretty crazy. Those are the two that are like the latest for me. I don't know if they're quite at scale yet, but every time I talk to someone, I'm like, hey, you should check these out in case there's an opportunity to help kind of build these things. Because again, it's like, I can't use it. Maybe somebody else can use it.
Exactly.
And if those companies can get to scale, then everybody can use it.
And then, exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that line of thought. I think at the end is as much we can be able to share and as much we can be able to enable others so they can be able to use it, can be able to make easier for everyone, reducing cost, make it accessible, and everyone can be able to lift the boat in a way. Not all these different challenges that everyone has. So yeah, hopefully this guide, this intention can be able to bring the spark a little bit maybe for companies. So hopefully they can be able to do similar efforts and everyone can be able to jump on the same boat.
Yeah, no, exactly. Miguel, is there anything that maybe I didn't ask about that you'd like to share before we wrap up here?
No, I appreciate, Evelio, the interest. And yes, if we can be able to add maybe the link on the guide, we can be able to share offline on which one is it. So yeah, so people can be able to just go through it. Reach out if you see that something is missing, if there is something cool that you would like to share, or maybe there is some need or some opportunities where we can be able to collaborate. We are looking forward to it. So hopefully that can be able to help us out, bring these together, these solutions in a much more scalable way. But thank you for having me, Aurelio. I appreciate it.
No, Miguel, thank you so much for agreeing to be on here. This is so cool. Again, I'll give you, there'll be a link in the show. Click on it. If you're a designer, download this thing. It's going to blow your mind.